Carmen Vicelich is the founder and CEO of Valocity and Data Insight. With nearly 20 years' experience working with data and technology, Carmen is an internationally sought-after speaker on data and strategy. Many of you, no doubt, will have worked with Carmen and know firsthand the wisdom and foresight she brings to the table. Everyone wants to create value from data. Carmen is a rare example of an entrepreneur that has created value from data with two fast-growing global multi-million-dollar businesses that she's built from scratch. Carmen is also a finalist for this year's Women of Influence Awards. Please welcome Carmen to the stage.
Thank you, Justin. It's a bit surreal, actually, to be standing here and see all these DI Day signs everywhere and all of our amazing team and also so many familiar faces in the audience. I guess after many years of organising conferences like Smarter Data or emceeing conferences, or speaking conferences, this is our very own conference, and we're just really privileged to spend the day with you. Today was born out of, I guess, recognising that we get to work across so many different industries, and just even, the people here today, we've got utilities, telcos, banks, insurers, government, media, and we recognise that working and looking at the different approaches to data and the different ways that you look at solving your problems, we learn so much across those different industries that makes us better. And so we wanted to organise today to really encourage that collaboration and share some of those learnings. The other thing we recognise is that despite the disparities in the different data sets and the different teams, actually there's so much that you share in common, that you all have similar challenges of what you're trying to do and trying to accomplish. And that's where we also wanted to make sure we had a day where we can share the lessons learned and inspire and actually make that we're all actually better off and execute better. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about accelerating the data journey. And anybody that knows me knows I do everything fast. Patience is my worst virtue, and I want everything quick. And I guess, it really feels like it's a race, because if we're working with data, we don't have the luxury of time. We all know, if we're in banking especially, or insurance, there's more and more to do with regulatory compliance. If we're in retail, there's more and more competitors. There's more and more data across every industry. And most importantly, there's more and more expectations from our customers for us to get it right. And global brands are really setting the stream. I'm sure it's no surprise to anybody that's attending today that actually we need to be data-driven. The most valuable businesses in the world are all built on data. They all leverage data and technology to deliver seamless customer experiences, and that's why they are what they are. They're not because of products. They're because of how they actually action data and the experiences they create. And that's the driving force of becoming data-driven. So we all know we need to leverage data. We all know it can create unique, tangible, significant value. But I guess, what we're wanting to share today is how do we actually do this? How do we actually execute and do it faster and better than anybody else? And that's, I guess, some of the lessons learned that I want to share from building two companies around data. So it's about leveraging the things that help you go faster, because speed is really the true success story, because then you're constantly iterating and learning and ahead of the game. And I'm going to talk through the three key things, and people is the most important. So you might think it's data, but it's actually people. So leveraging the things to help you go faster. The first is technology. And quite often we come in to support some of you as clients or some of the businesses where actually to do data transformation, they start with technology. It's a big project, or we're going to start with this data thing when we get our data lake. Or actually, we're hiring somebody and we're going to do this particular data piece to bring it all into a new warehouse. Sounds familiar? But that is not actually, it shouldn't be the starting point. It's about harnessing technology to first understand why are you doing what you're doing and what is the problem you're solving, and then the technology comes. So technology shouldn't be your foundation, because it has to be flexible. The world is changing so rapidly, and Neil's going to talk about dashboarding. And I remember 2 years ago, everybody was using Excel. Then it was Tableau, and now it's Power BI. And next year it'll be something else. The technology is evolving so quickly. You can't actually do a big technology project and do a set and forget and think this 5-year transformation project is going to be the answer to accelerating your data journey. It's about microservices and actually building the flexibility to harness technology every which way you can. And I'm a huge fan of Alibaba, and I love this expression where he says, actually, if you want to add new customers, you have to build a new data warehouse, you have to hire people. And because they've built everything in the cloud and everything's so flexible and customizable, and Ant Financial is on, I think, their 4th new system because they keep expanding and expanding. He says this to Walmart, going, you can't compete with me because technology and the way I leverage data is my unique advantage. But then I love it, actually, that DBS Bank in Singapore says, well, right back at you, we're even faster and more ahead of our digital journey, and we can go even faster. And so if you're competing, and all of you will be, having flexible, agile technology that allows you to plug and play into what's new and what's coming, and leverage new tools and technology and get the data out is the key to actually setting yourself up for success. Because you can't go fast and you can't leverage some of the exciting technologies like AI and machine learning, which we're going to touch on later on today, if you don't have your data ready to work. It's like buying the Ferrari, but not actually being able to put the petrol in it, and no one knows how to drive it. So it's not just about technology, it's about actually setting yourself up to be future-proof and agile, to be modular and configurable, and working out, actually, how can I get the data out of these legacy systems that can enable me to start actually leveraging and creating actionable insights? Because speed is everything. You no longer have the time to be a long-term transformational project. You know, we talk to customers and it's taken kind of 12 months to do a segmentation model. Well, guess what? Their customer is gone. It's all about speed and saying, actually, let's get something fast and test and learn and then actually iterate. And even if you only do a small portion that you get out, because that's all you can get accurate, iterating from there is much better than trying to get it perfect before you get it out and trying to do a big thing, because you just can't learn from that. So it's about actually setting yourself up for success to leverage these new things. The capability that now comes with technology for data is transformational, but it's also, as I'm sure we're going to be seeing more and more, it also comes with the need for ethical and digital ethics, and we've seen this more and more around Cambridge Analytics, around Christchurch, around more and more cases, and it's going to continue, because just because you could doesn't necessarily mean that you should. We can't rely on regulatory compliance to say should we or shouldn't we do this. And there's so many examples. We were in Singapore late last year and spent some time with a lot of the banks. And what they're doing there in terms of collaboration is so powerful. So a large bank who is a large retailer as their customer, they've converged for a single app. You can go on the app, you can do your shopping, you don't have to get your wallet out. It's amazing. All this data flows through beautifully, as you can only imagine. So suddenly this bank can model and actually use that retail data for credit risk scoring. And they can see if you buy fine wine and organic broccoli, you are less likely to default than if you buy a 6-pack of beer and pizza on a Friday night. And I mean, any of us that have kids, or they like the cheap frozen pizza, and you might just like beers. So is that okay that they're actually using that data in that way? But you consented to the app and you used it. But is that okay? Or are we going to become a cash society because we recognise people are using data in ways that we hadn't anticipated? And so I think this is something that all of us as data practitioners, trust is the new transparency. Transparency is the new and trust is the new value creator. So it's constantly thinking about how you're using data, and if you were exposed for doing it in that way, would that be okay? Because I think more and more we can do more, and we have to be thinking about actually should we do that, and is that okay, and are we being transparent about how we're doing that? And we have to create those rules. We can't expect regulators who are way behind to think about that they can do that for us. It's about data, and it's not just about data for data's sake. So when we started Data Insight, it was really born out of lots and lots of corporates going, we've got lots and lots of data, but no insights, and lots of reporting, but it's not actually telling us the story, and it's not telling us the so what. And so that is the key thing, and it's quite hard to do insights. As a judge on the Nexus Awards, I'm always surprised by what people enter in insights. And insights this is the data, and this is what it's telling us, and this is the so what, because otherwise we don't have time to look through screeds and screeds of reports. So it's a way of thinking about data. It's a discipline of actually making data tell you the story. This was what we thought we wanted to query. This is what we used. This is what we found. And now this is what, if we do this, we get that. and taking it to that next important level, that commercializes it. That's what creates the tangible value. And that's the expectation of our customers. If you know things about them and you don't use it and you don't tell them, it's completely useless. Everybody always talks about data like the new oil, but like oil, it has to be commoditized, extracted, and refined in order to create value. And so the best companies in the world that do that are Uber, Amazon, and these businesses that show us they know us. They deliver seamless and relevant experiences, and they make our lives easier through data. And we all know how frustrating it is when we tell somebody something and they don't actually use that information, and how disappointing it is. And we actually chop and change so easily because I told you that information, you know that. Why are you asking me that again? And why do I have to fill that out every single time? So it's actually leveraging the data and making sure the flow works across your business, across the silos, and across the customer experience. And a great example of this was DBS Bank. We spent some time with them, and they're amazing. And they talked about mapping out the customer journey and the data flow of when somebody loses their credit card. And so it's a fantastic example, because what they did is they said, actually, the first thing you do when you lose your credit card is you ring the bank and you tell the call centre, oh, I lost my credit card. Please cancel it. I'm worried about fraud. So they thought, oh, we're clever. We're going to start the conversation as soon as you ring through and say, we lost credit card. Don't worry, I've just cancelled your credit card. I'm sending you an Uber, and your card will be delivered tomorrow morning. Boom. And they were so proud. They worked for months through this process of the customer journey, and they had it all mapped out with the post-it notes, and they're trying to save their customer 10,000 hours. So the very first customer rings up, and they go through this process, and the next morning they ring her and they go, how was that? Ta-da! And she goes, well, that was cool, but, what about my cash flow card? I can't get any money out. And they go, oh, that's another project. That's another team. They're still working on transformation over there. So she was like, well, care factor 0, because great, I've got one car, but, how does that really help me? You've only helped half my problem. And I guess that's the example of that data flow. Why could they not trigger that to the other team? But it was another team working on their transformation project in their own silo, and not flowing through those collaborations. And I guess an important example of the customer. So what does it mean to be data-driven? This is kind of our biggest user case, where businesses, everybody wants to be data-driven. Being data-driven is actually being able to predict, being able to leverage, and being able to execute, importantly to execute on data. And that's why it's not about a data team. It's not about a BI team or a data team. It's about the whole business. It's about top-down and having this across cultural way of thinking. And all the best examples in the world start with data. So getting data to the top table, getting data on the board, getting data across every single silo and across every KPI, or it'll never happen. And, there's so many great examples around this, and around actually making yourself and your business show demonstrable value around data. And the best example is Netflix, who uses data to decide their strategy, to decide which actors, to decide which stories to tell, all based on customer-first feedback coming into their business, rather than what they want to do going out of their business. So we're all solving customer problems, not looking at what they want to do. So it's about having a strategic data framework, because if you don't have this plan in place across your entire business, then it's just going to be silos and it's just going to be disparate. So before you can get data or access data, particularly from your clients, you have to create shared value exchange. I am happy that Uber knows where I am. They can track me. They've got me on my GPS. Sometimes it feels like my husband's tracking me when I pop into David Jones in Sydney, and he goes, how's those meetings going? I'm like, oh, flat out. And how was David Jones? I think he's tracking me. But actually, I'm happy that they know where I am, because they can send a car to me and solve my problems. If I'm walking past McDonald's and Uber suddenly says, want a cheeseburger? I'd be like, whoa, I didn't sign up for that. That's not okay. So creating shared value exchange with your customers is really important, saying this is the data I'm collecting, this is why, this is how I'm going to use it, and being really transparent around that. And if you can create shared value exchange, it's amazing the data that you can capture. And imagine what your clients will tell you. You have to think about, why would they want to tell me that? What's in it for them? Because then we're happy to tell you what we want if we get something in exchange. building an asset, you've got to think about your data as an asset. If you're not doing quality control and fixed field formats and validating what you're putting in, you're not building an asset, because you're going to have rubbish in, rubbish out. And I guess that's a lot of the starting point that a lot of large businesses are in today, because data wasn't an asset many, many years ago. When I started in data, it wasn't cool. It was just geeky. They're like, you do what? Tell me again what you do. I really don't understand. Thank God for Netflix and big brands that actually made it cool. And then it's about creating insights, not reports, not Excel spreadsheets, not a data warehouse, actually getting insights. What is your data telling you? What is the story it's telling you? And then actioning it, sending it to the right people to make sure they've actually actioned it. And it's funny, because when we start working with a lot of businesses, they go, oh, we thought if we could turn off a whole lot of reports, no one will notice. Try doing that and seeing actually who notices, who's actually reading that, or put some fake data in as a 1st of April joke and say, oh, no one even picked up that I made, we got 50 million customers. Hello, anybody looking at this? So actually seeing what is it actually telling you. And that's when you get to the magic of commercialization and differentiation, because you've actually created value from data. And so we have done this in the Valocity business. We started the business with nothing. We went and aggregated multiple disparate data sets, and we created value for banks to be able to rely on that data, consume that data, and access it through a platform every single day. And when we're doing that, you have to think about what data and why. What is the value? It's not just data for data's sake. We can get more and more data. What data and why are you collecting that? How do you capture and validate that? Are you validating the address? Are you benchmarking and making sure actually that makes sense what you're getting in? Because you're building this asset over time. If it is an asset, you have to store and protect it. So you do have to understand access. You also do have to understand terms and conditions. And that's getting more and more complicated. And having a framework of access to say, that makes it still compliant but gives access is really important. For example, you're not going to share date of birth across your entire organization, but you could share this is the decade or this is the group that this customer's in to make that available. So it's trying to find ways that you can make the data accessible and insightful while still protecting it. And we have many examples where customers, we'll give you this so you can build this model. Well, we don't need to know the actual birth date. You can give me the year and I can simulate the age of the customer without giving me their actual date of birth and sharing that information when you don't have to. So it's not about just going, data's democratized, everybody's got it. And Claire and I were at Uber in Australia, and they're like, everyone's got access to everything. And we're like, oh my God. And everybody's a data scientist. And we're like, okay. I was just alarm bells were ringing in my head the whole time, thinking, well, that's cool, but not. So thinking about how do you create those terms and conditions, operationalizing and actioning it, future-proofing, because guess what? More data is coming. How long ago Facebook wasn't around, LinkedIn wasn't around, more data is coming. Don't build this database that you can never add anything, and I know many of you have those, such creatures. So thinking about how do we future-proof and having an always-on approach, because it's constantly changing and iterating. I am no longer in Nappy Valley, guys. I've had 4 children. I bought nappies. I bought maternity clothes. It was a long time ago. Some brands are still sending me those things. I have changed. I've got older. It would be quite a divine intervention if I had another child. So, thinking about always-on approach. What does your customer want today? What they told you they wanted, however many years ago that you asked, has evolved. And I guess even big brands do this wrong. I was so proud. I bought my husband a humidor on Amazon for a present, and now I keep seeing cigar boxes. I bought him one. I'm never buying one ever again. So stop sending me humidors. So thinking about that. And I guess one of the things as data practitioners that we want it to be perfect. We want it to be really right. And it's never going to be finished. And it takes a long time. But what you have to think about is actually inadequate data errors are less than using no data at all. And, one of our biggest lessons was working with a telco. They rang up and said, we need a segmentation model. This was about 10 o'clock. And we need it by 2 o'clock. And the team hung up and going, oh my God, they want a segmentation model by 2 o'clock. And what had happened is their competitor had put out an offer and they needed to respond. And they could either just do a blanket offer to everybody, or they could have a light touch segmentation model to go, okay, we're going to send that to those, that to those, and that to those. And some segmentation model in 4 hours was better than none. And so it was a really great learning for our team, going segmentation model coming right up. Was it perfect? No. But you can do a segmentation model in 4 hours to go, actually, this is how we can group the different groups. We're not going to talk to that one about that. We're not going to talk to that one about that. There's some that we don't know. They can go into the other. And you can do that fast. And that mindset
is about accelerating your data journey, because then you're learning and you get the responses, and some is better than none, because your gut is great. As an entrepreneur, I'm constantly using my gut, but data is better. The most important thing to execute for data acceleration and become a data-driven organization is people. And we're going to talk about people a lot today. And some of you might be thinking, especially those real practitioners, wow, there's a lot of talk about people. But actually, people are what make everything possible. So we're going to go into the detail of AI and dashboarding, but actually everything you're doing is for people. You're solving a problem for people, for your customers, for your stakeholders. Everything is for people. And the more you think about it like that, what is the problem I'm solving and who am I solving this for, the better you'll solve it. And the data and the technology are just the tools to enable you to do those things. So it's all about people and purpose. And so mostly we always start with what we want to do and then how we're going to do it. And it's classic Simon Sinek to say, actually, why? Why are we doing this? Why do you want to do that? And by asking our clients or asking our teams why, then everybody understands the purpose. We can all go, oh, we need to build a boat, guys. Quick, build a boat. But if you don't say, actually, I'm going to Stewart Island versus I'm going to South Africa, you're going to build a different boat. And you're going, actually, I'm only going to use it once, or I want it to be really, be able to do all these things. So it's all about interpretation and framing, but also make sure everybody understands why. Because why is when you get the buy-in. And the buy-in is about actually finding a way to do it. So why are we doing whatever we're doing? Why are we creating this report? Why are we building this model? What is the problem that we're solving, and why are we doing it? Then we work out how, and then we work out what it looks like. So everything boils down to culture and capability. And it's so amazing. It's such an intangible. You can't buy culture, no matter how much money you have. But it's an intangible. When we walk in to an organization to come and work with them, we can feel the culture. And we can almost tell at the beginning of the project if it's going to be an easy project or a difficult project. Because it comes down to attitude. Actually, if we're going to make this work, there's going to be problems along the way. There's going to be forks in the road. There's going to be shitty data. But actually, we're going to find a way to do this, or we're going to find all the reasons why we can't do this. And it's one or the other. So you can't do any transformation, be it technology or data or digital. You cannot do that unless you have people that have the right mindset, about an agile mindset that embrace change, because change is hard. And what we're talking about today is new. And that's the most exciting thing about being in data. It's always new. I couldn't stop with 4 babies and maternity leave because my husband had to be the house dad, because I'm like, I can't stop. I'm in data and tech. It doesn't stop. And but that's the exciting thing, because there's always more things we can do. And so it's all about change. And if your team or your people don't have a mindset that embraces change and transformation and new, which is uncomfortable. We don't know that. That's not what we learnt. Now we've got to do this. You just try and move some data scientist desks. It's like really quite traumatic. It's like, oh my God, what are we moving? Oh, no, she's doing that. My team's laughing because, you can imagine what it's like working with me. I work with a lot of left-brainers. They're very structured, and I come stopping over there going, oh my God, I came in from this client. Or I wake up and I've got an idea and I'm seeing a client in 4 hours. I'm like, I want to show them this. Can you just build me this? Oh, and when do we need it? Oh, for 4 hours. And they're like, oh, there she goes again. Oh God. One of my team calls me Rambo because I come in with a machine gun. And I go, do this, and then I go away again, and then I come back going, oh. So it's a real cultural thing. But actually, we're doing a lot of support in terms of hiring, because we see people that get it and that don't. And it's very, very strong in the culture. We've had, people that have started business with us on a Monday, and by Friday, they have said too many times, oh, that's hard, oh, I can't do that, oh, I don't know that. By Friday, my team, not me, has said, oh, this is their best week. They're just not going to work here, because it's about saying, how can we do this, rather than all the reasons why we can't. And so it's about culture and capability, and it's about people that have the right mindset to problem solve. And in your team, there will be the people in cross teams or in your team that will find the reasons why you can't do it. The data's not perfect. Oh, it's difficult. Oh, it's this. That is too bad. What can you do? You might not be able to do it that way, but actually, what can you do? And when you actually look at things like that, magic happens. I mean, remember we had a large client in Australia And they were so far behind, and we were like, oh my God, you've got so much to do. And we said, you know what? 10 weeks, 10 projects. We'll do 1 week a light touch single customer view, the next week a light touch engagement model, the next week a light touch. And it was hard and it was full on, but what they got in 10 weeks was game changing to their business. And so it's thinking about it differently, going, well, actually, what if? What if we could do this? And that's about removing silos as well and focusing on the customer, because the biggest challenge when you've got so many teams is actually how do you all work together on the customer and share the data and make sure it all flows through and that everyone's thinking collaboratively. And that's why it's completely a cultural thing. It's a top-down thing, and it's a way of thinking of problem solving. So in summary, for acceleration and execution, we have to recognize most thinking and methods that we've learned are for a bygone era, because either at a university, some of us here will have gone and studied marketing and we're big picture thinkers, or we went and studied data science or analytics and we're very much into the detail. But in today's world, to deliver a seamless customer experience, we need to do both. We need to understand what is the customer experience going to be like if I do that, and then we need to understand the detail to know, okay, what does that mean? What channel, what message, what way? Because the devil is in the detail. And you have to have both. And so we have to collaborate as a business, as partners, and we actually have to think about both of those views as people. And no one taught us that at university or whatever we learned at school. So it's a new way of thinking and recognizing that what we were taught is a world that no longer exists. And I guess that's why we're passionate to have days like today to go, we have to keep learning. We have to keep thinking differently and sharing different ways of thinking in order to succeed in today's world. AI is going to automate everything, as we know, and it's our way of thinking that's going to differentiate us and future-proof us. We're going to talk about Agile today, and it's really interesting, and I love Agile, don't get me wrong. We use Agile for Valocity, and every 2 weeks we build new things, and it's magic. But what Agile doesn't mean is, and we've seen this a little bit with some of our corporates that we work with, Agile doesn't mean just throwing everyone into these siloed teams that don't know what the other one's doing and just doing things really, really fast to do for the sake of doing things that are tactical but not necessarily strategic. So make sure actually your Agile still aligns to your big business strategy and don't get so busy doing without thinking, what are we doing? So to sum it up, it's about what is your strategy? What are you trying to do and with data? What is your capacity and capability? So who's going to do it, and who's going to help you get there? And do you have the right people on board, or do you have the right support from external parties and vendors that think the way you need to be thinking to get there? Because if your business isn't thinking like that, you need to partner with those that are. You need an actionable work plan. So how are you going to do it? Everyone's got their 3-year plan. How are you going to do it? What are the little bite-sized pieces? And think micro moments. Don't do these big projects. It's got to be small to deliver incremental value while you've got the big ones going on. And you need to iterate. It's never done. And you need all 4 of those things to succeed. If you think you're going to do all 3 and then just sit there and go happy days, you won't. If you think you can just suddenly start doing without having a clear plan and strategy that the whole business doesn't understand, you're going to end up on different islands, everybody's boat's going a different way, and the sail will be flapping. And one of the best examples that we've seen is DBS Bank, and they set themselves a goal to be like Gandalf. They wanted to be the Google of open source. They wanted to be Amazon of predictive analytics. They wanted to be the Netflix of relevant data conversations to their customers. The D is DBS, and they wanted the design and simplicity of Apple. They wanted the community of LinkedIn and always learning through communities and through collaboration. And they wanted the Facebook of actually having a wider ecosystem. And every year they work with over 100 fintech startups and they've got a shared sandbox so you can come in and actually show them what you can do with their data, and they integrate that in. So they're accelerating and digitizing really, really fast, and one of the great examples that I've seen. So in summary, it's harness technology. It's not about invest in technology. It's harnessing technology, doing actionable insights. People are the path to execution. People are everything. If you have the wrong people steering the ship or on your team, it's just like the All Blacks. If you've got the wrong people there, you're not going to win. And make sure you never stop starting, because it's never finished. Thank you.